Hello everyone, I'm opinionated and I sexually identify as an attack helicopter. In regards to frames per second, there are a bunch of lies and half-truths that I want to dispel in this video. Since I'm not really qualified to talk about video production, I'll mostly be focused on gaming. Starting with a little TLDR, having more FPS in gaming is always better. Anybody who says otherwise is misinformed. So I don't know where this myth comes from, but a lot of people still say that the human eye can only see 30 FPS. And this is completely untrue. Admittedly, I believed that myself for a while, so I turned down the FPS in some games to 30. I locked them down, so it couldn't go higher than that. And after I reverted this, I found out that there's a huge difference. I couldn't believe how much smoother the game got. I myself can't talk about going higher than 60 FPS because I don't have any money for a high FPS screen, but everybody who's tried it attests a great deal of difference there too. So to get this out of the way, you can get a stutter-free and smooth image at like 24 FPS, but going higher than this will yield even smoother results. Just like you can have one pillow that is soft and another one that is softer. One is just on the edge of qualifying as soft at all, and another one is really, really soft. You will most definitely notice the difference. And just think about this one. One major reason why this 30 FPS nonsense can't be true at all is that most VR games need to be at 90 FPS for people not to get any motion sickness. And it needs to be a steady minimum 90 FPS so that there's no motion sickness. Another bullshit thing about FPS that I've heard all too often is that 24 FPS are more cinematic. While on first glance this could be regarded as true because most movies are actually shot in 24 FPS, there's a difference here. Film is not the same thing as games. The key point here is that if you record something with a camera, it actually records some of the information in between the individual frames. The most common shutter speed for recording at 24 FPS is 1/48th of a second. That means that about half the time the camera lets in light. So all of this light that's recorded in between frames will result in motion blur. And this is the key difference. You don't have that when rendering individual frames in a game. So during his entire movement from one side to the other, this character has a bit of blur to him in the movie. In the game, however, they just teleport from one frame to the other. But precisely this blur is what is important, because this is where the brain kicks in and fills in all the gaps. And this is why the argument for 24 FPS makes sense for film, but not for games. If you wanted to achieve the same result in a game, you'd have to render it at basically infinite FPS and then sample it down to 24. At that point, why even bother sampling it down? Just leave it running at that FPS because it looks so much better. Oh yeah, and speaking of motion blur, the sort of motion blur that was introduced into games for what feels like a year or so is obviously achieved in a different way, so it doesn't yield the same result as recording something with a camera would. And now we're reaching the part where a debate can actually happen, because a lot of people have to choose between high detail levels and high FPS. Playing at high FPS obviously makes the most sense for games like shooters that require very quick reflexes. And here we're entering a territory where not every second counts, but every millisecond counts. And on the opposing side, you have games such as city builders or strategy games that come with very detailed visuals where you just don't need the high refresh rate. This is from Anno 2070. Just looking at this, it seems so obvious that this game wasn't designed to be played at minimum details. The graphics are just a part of the experience. So many people are saying that, oh no, graphics don't matter, but look at this, they obviously do. Ultimately, it comes down to personal preference. Would you rather play a game at more than 60 FPS, or would you rather have the highest possible details? Well, maybe you want both, depending on your budget. Or you want none of them, in which case go buy a console. Please don't buy a console.